conditions on board the USS Lincoln?
Well, no, that ship is moving. No, they're not.
This has been building, and it's finally hit the point where people are starting to notice. And it took literally a sailor jumping off a ship for people to start taking notice. And now it's all over the news. And having been in an extended deployment twice in my career, you understand that what's happening to these sailors are creating dog days.
Military leaders are speaking out after Donald Trump suggested that he doesn't believe reports coming from the families of American service members who are struggling on the USS Lincoln. This was in response to when the president was asked about increasingly grim reports coming from families of sailors aboard the USS Abraham Lincoln, saying to Trump that family members were concerned about conditions aboard the ship. And if you remember on Friday, the president responded by simply saying, quote, "No, they're not."
Service members are concerned about the conditions on board the USS Lincoln.
Well, no, that ship is moving. No, they're not. Their ship.
Because the deployment's gone on too long. Are you worried?
No. Not nearly long enough.
I mean, let's just pause for a second, right, before we hear from those who have served and their response to this. Can you imagine if Joe Biden or Barack Obama had said this in response to reports of soldiers attempting suicide because of the conditions that they're forced to endure? I mean, he's just basically saying, nah, they're not that upset. And by the way, the lack of condemnation from Republicans, let's keep in mind that these are the same people who are currently silent would be dissecting Obama's salute to see if it was crisp enough to respect the military, and all but cancelled an NFL player's career for kneeling during the national anthem, claiming that it disrespected the military. They are now absolutely silent as Trump just disregards serious issues about a carrier that has spent more than 200 consecutive days without a normal port call.
Where is the mission, right?
Yeah.
It's one thing to ask people to sacrifice and risk and endure for a period of time with an ending, because at the end of it, there's something worthwhile we're going to accomplish. For these sailors, I can't imagine what they're thinking. Like, is there an end date? Or are we just going to do this forever? Are we ever going to get relieved? Or are we just going to do this until like the end of time? And even if we do, like, what are we accomplishing here? We're not doing any good. It's not like we're defeating the enemy. You know, it's not like we're winning the war. Like, why are we doing this?
Yeah, and that's the thing. I'll bring up one vignette. I don't think I told you this story. When we were extended in our deployment, I was the assistant division commander for support. So I was pushing troops out. We had literally pushed about a third of our 20,000 man and woman organization back to Europe, back to their post in Europe. So we had about 8,000 soldiers already returning home. And in fact, in one welcome home ceremony, a local German newspaper took a picture of a soldier hugging his wife. And before that picture appeared on the front page of the local newspaper, he was back in Iraq already. So we brought people back, but at least they had a taste. And to your point, they knew what the mission was. There was an uprising in Iraq. We had fought for a year to tamp things down, and Muqtada Sadr pulled it back up. In some of the reports from the Navy, one that I read that really struck my heart is a sailor wrote to his wife and said, "I'm not even sure what the mission is, and I don't even know if I'm not committing war crimes," which we have talked about as well. You know, are the things, the sailor basically said, "I'm not sure the things I'm doing are legal."
And past service members across the board have reprimanded the president for these remarks, downplaying the testimony from families who have reported exhaustion, mental health concerns, food shortages, water problems, as well as allegations that multiple sailors have attempted or prepared to go overboard. And for Donald Trump to respond to questions from families that are concerned with just, no, they're not, I still cannot get my head around it, and the lack of response from the Republican Party, nor his follow-up comment to a question if the deployment had gone on too long. He said, not nearly long enough. This is from Sergeant Bonespurs himself, who once compared dodging STDs in New York to his own personal war in Vietnam. Meanwhile, about 200 spouses and relatives actually attended meetings last week with the acting Navy Secretary and other senior Navy officials to raise concerns about the Lincoln. So how can you say they're not when they're literally attending town halls to bring it to attention? Not to mention that Stars and Stripes reported that families raised mental health concerns directly with Navy leadership.
The Lincoln left San Diego last November and has now been deployed for more than 250 days, including more than 200 days without a port visit, a record for the aircraft carrier.
You expect to be ported every so often and to have a little bit of a break. And it's just not fair that they haven't had those opportunities.
Jasmine has friends and family aboard the Lincoln, alongside roughly 5,000 sailors and Marines. She is one of many speaking out for the safe return of service members.
You can just hear that they're not themselves, and this is just exhausting them.
The Navy Times recently reported multiple incidents of sailors attempting to go overboard during the Lincoln's long deployment. The report also says about 200 family members raised concerns at a San Diego town hall last week, including reports of deteriorating mental health, shortages of basic supplies, water contamination, and plumbing issues. Jasmine was there and says families left without the answers they hoped for.
We felt like we were heard by leadership. So we felt like we needed to be heard everywhere else.
She says the George Washington's deployment has given her hope her family will soon come home.
They want a real return date. They want decent conditions for their loved ones in the meantime. And I think people just want to know, how will they know when the mission's been accomplished?
Representative Mike Levin says relieving the USS Lincoln is not enough. He, alongside other Democratic lawmakers, are demanding for more information from the DoD about what led to the reported conditions.
We just want to know what's really happening so that we can do our best to help those Marines and sailors and to prevent this from happening again.
The Navy confirmed a sailor went overboard earlier this month and was quickly recovered and treated. But the Navy says it has not identified an increase in reported suicidal ideation or attempts aboard the ship. The Defense Secretary has called reports about conditions aboard, quote, completely misrepresented.
This is not some anonymous Twitter account that claims military families are unhappy just to get back at Donald Trump. The families literally showed up to a meeting with the Secretary of the Navy and other leaders, 200 of them, by the way, to express this concern. And Donald Trump says that they're just not because it's not politically convenient to him. That's not just dismissive. It is a president contradicting the testimony of families themselves because he's wary of how it will make him look politically. And by the way, he's essentially contradicting his own Navy leadership also, who attended those town halls to listen to these concerns. Vice Admiral Joseph Cahill acknowledged the strain, and he actually told families, "We hear you loud and clear," regarding the impact of the deployment on service members. And falling directly in line with Trump was Pete Hegseth also, when he was asked about the poor conditions aboard the Lincoln. His answer was the reports were, quote, completely misrepresented. By who, mate? Who? The families who are reporting this, the Military Times who spoke directly with said family members of those who attempted to jump overboard. I mean, it's been corroborated that that sailor's now on medical hold. So misrepresenting what? The Stars and Stripes who independently reported an incident where watchstanders stopped another crew member from jumping. I mean, guys, this is so beyond pathetic. These are not liberal think tanks or anti-Trump accounts that are just posting hearsay, but outlets designated to the goings-on in the military. And there's something particularly ugly about dismissing military families in this way because Trump, as we know, has repeatedly used those same families as political props. But apparently, the moment that they say something that's politically inconvenient, their lived experience and the lived experience of their family members becomes negotiable. That's not respecting the military. In my opinion, he never has. That is simply viewing it, as Trump does with absolutely everything, as transactional.
Hey, if you want the full story, how democracy got here and how we take it back, pre-order our new book, WTF America, today. Just scan the QR code or click the link in the description. Let's do this.